Matrix's Keanu Reeves, who talks of having taken what he calls demon rides, says,
"It's hard to act in the morning. The muse isn't even awake."
The occultist Kingston described her summoning of spirit guides on the set.
When Miss Crawford arrived on a movie set, she immediately requested the air conditioning be turned up higher. "I always do my best work when the set is cold," she said. A true believer, she felt the coldness would bring in the spirits to help with her performance.
Does it ever get annoying, like when you're trying to go to sleep, like, shut up?
Yeah, I have that all the time.
Really?
Please stop.
In my room. Rock journalist Nick Kent wrote of these voices inside his head. They weren't saying anything too distinct yet, just making this dark, ghostly murmuring sound back there in the lower recesses of his brain. He stated, quote, "At one session for Heroes and Villains, he tried to capture this latest ghoulish sound, taking up squatters' rights in his head. It was the scariest sound of anything he'd created for Smile."
She just has that ability to transcend the reality of the moment and become the vessel for the muse. When she's acting, she is not Juliette Lewis. That to me is the sign of a really great actor. When you can let the muse take over, you look into their eyes and no one's home.
AC/DC also sings about selling their souls to Satan for rock and roll fame. AC/DC guitarist Angus Young has also admitted to being possessed. He points out that the spirit manifests while he's performing on stage. He says, quote, "By the time we're halfway through the first number, someone else is steering me. I'm just along for the ride. I become possessed when I get on stage." Are you aware that Carlos Santana is a mere tool of the spirit world, that he admits assigned and designed the project fittingly called Supernatural?
Music is the vehicle for the magic of healing, and the music of Supernatural was assigned and designed to bring unity and harmony.
Santana actually admitted that he is being used by a spirit that identified itself as Metatron. Metatron has been associated with the eye in the triangle in occult history. In occultist Aleister Crowley's teaching, the eye in the triangle represents Satan himself. Santana stated, quote, "I know it sounds New Age, but in my meditation, this entity, which is called Metatron," he said, "we want to hook you back to the radio airwave frequency. We want to reach junior high schools, and universities. Once you reach them, because we are going to connect you with the best artists of the day, then we want you to present them with a new menu. Let them know that they themselves are multidimensional spirits with enormous possibilities and opportunities. We want you to present them with a new form of existence that transcends religion, politics, or the modus operandi of education today. This country was founded with the Bible in one hand and guns in the other." Carlos Santana said that these spirits, which as we shall see in a little bit, were actually devils, had supernaturally brought different musicians to him and worked in the musical arena to bring them all together for this Landside album appropriately called Supernatural. Santana said, "I heard this entity wanted me to know I would be hooked up with the right writers, musicians, and producers for the purpose of reaching high school and college kids, so my inner instructions were clear." He said that Eric Clapton wanted to know if he could play on the album. He said all the people who played on the record said that they had heard my music before I called them, or that I appeared to them in dreams or something. Santana said they knew what was coming before they got the call. Santana admits that he is channeling music from the same spirit entities that used Jimi Hendrix, who himself claimed to be demon-possessed. He said, quote, "There is an invisible radio that Jimi Hendrix and Coltrane tuned into, and when you go there, you start channeling other music." Santana told Rolling Stone magazine, quote, "You meditate and you got the candles, you got the incense, and you've been chanting, and all of a sudden you hear this voice, write this down." Santana described receiving information from the spirit world like a human fax machine. Santana said, "I'm seeking to validate angels and devils with the same reverence." He said, "It's okay for your nipples to be hard and for you to be foaming at the mouth and you're really aroused." He said, "I'm not afraid anymore of those perimeters."
I read where you said that when you start playing, you undergo a transformation of sorts. What happens?
When playing on stage, Santana goes through what appears to be a demonic transformation. He says, quote, "I'm not Carlos anymore." He says, quote, "When I see it on TV, it's like another guy playing."
In the 1920s, the homage bestowed upon him earned him the names The Great Lover and the Love God, Rudolph Valentino, who was considered the premier actor of his day.
He was so absolutely hounded by publicity. Crowds would gather. I've heard tales of women picking up cigar butts in the streets and cherishing them. It was just insanity.
However, what most people are not aware of is that Valentino and his wife Natasha were in communication with demonic spirits and relied on them for direction in his films. This was a known fact in Hollywood. The actress Colleen Moore confessed,
Every night Natasha would hold a seance, calling forth help from the spirit world in her creative undertaking. Then, pencil and paper in hand, she would go into a trance and start writing. After her outpourings were typed up, they were brought to the set the next day and given to the director.
Almost overnight, unbridled sexual promiscuity, once considered sinful, was now redefined as exciting, popular, and trendy. When millions of Valentino's fans watched his movies and surrendered to the lustful passions they incited, they were responding to stories and messages that came from demons. The Valentinos were initiated into what is called automatic writing in the occult, when the pen in a person's hand will write out information from a spirit, yet the person is in an altered state of consciousness, rendering them incapable of fully knowing the communication until it is completed. The Valentinos wrote,
The more we investigated this remarkable gift of automatic writing, the more convinced we became of the great truth which lay behind it. The truth of evolution and the truth of communication with the so-called dead.
I was interested in books and magic and all that kind of thing. And I just got this really weird vibe off it. And I put it in this cupboard in the apartment that I was living in. And that night I just woke up suddenly and there was just this black shape at the bottom of my bed. And it just vanished into thin air as I was staring at it. And I just had the thought, it's got to have something to do with this book that Ozzy brought round for me, and I leapt out of bed, rushed to the cupboard to throw this book out, and the book was gone. And the next day I told Ozzy about it, and about 3 days after that we came up with our first song, Black Sabbath, and Ozzy just related my experience in the lyrics.
Is that when we were playing our first songs together, and especially our first the first 3 albums, for instance, we would literally show up in a room, and it was almost as if the songs were already written. That stuff just comes from somewhere.
Where does she obtain direction for her shows and enterprises? Time magazine gives us a frightening answer. Oprah Winfrey calls these her go-there moments. It is during these moments, usually while jogging the winding trails on her Indiana farm, that Winfrey becomes overwhelmed by the sense that old spirits are trying to get in touch with her. And it is during these moments that the woman who loves to talk stops dead in her tracks simply to listen. Winfrey says she has come to know each of them personally and calls them in at will to guide her in her work. The most familiar face on television says,
You can not only use your body and physical self. This is how I see acting. I ask my body to be the carrier for the spirits of those who have come before me in a way that is most meaningful to the character. Just become the vehicle for that character.
Calling out for these entities to take her over so that she may become a sparkling puppet, Oprah admits of her work before the camera.
I tried to empty myself and let the spirit inhabit me.